Okay, quick intro. First off, for those watching, I now have my Christmas background up. I'm so relieved in so many ways. First off, I'm a huge Christmas fan. It's November 19th, 2025. As I film this, can never have it up early enough. As soon as Halloween's over, I love a meme that shows the dates. For those who say you're skipping Christmas, it says November 1st through say the 26th is Christmas. November 27th is Thanksgiving. And then November 28th through December is Christmas again. So you're not skipping Christmas, but I love it. I also much prefer my complexion with this background, with some blue in it. I always hated wearing brown and oranges, and now I know why. I think I would look much better with the blue background. So that aside, this guy Max, I heard when I first joined the sobriety community 3+ years ago, he was one of the early speaker shares I heard. And he wasn't an active member of the community, but I immediately followed him on Instagram, and so glad I did. And when I started my podcast, beginning of this year, he was one of the first guys I thought of. So, and it's interesting. This goes a little long. I know you want to keep these under 60 minutes. This one goes a little bit over, and that's only part one. We could have talked all day. This one, our energies don't come out. That's one of the things I loved about him was his big, sober energy, like myself. And it doesn't really come out in this part, but I think we hit a lot of great topics to the point I couldn't come up with anything to edit. So you never know when you got to hit a gem and who it might help. And then in part two, you're going to definitely see some of the energy towards the end of that one. So hope you'll be patient with it if you're one of those, and if skip through as you need be. But I think there's a lot of gems in here. And one note, about 12 minutes in, I get confused about a stat, and I want to clarify it. It's that the World Health Organization estimates 3.3 million people die each year due to alcohol use, which is more than AIDS, tuberculosis, and violence combined. 6% of all deaths globally. That is a huge number. Oh, and one more note. Another reason I liked Max for this is that he's a man of faith, which I am more in the category that Match.com has of spiritual but not religious. So, I'm one when people credit their higher power. I say mine is my mother, and I say I don't want to give credit to the higher power. I did all the work. I want the credit. But absolutely, she gives me inspiration, and I'm all for those who get their inspiration elsewhere. So I was dying to ask him some of the questions I did towards the end of this. That'll do it. As always, thank you for listening and or watching. Enjoy. Okay, hello. Welcome to what should be the third ever Cappy Hour podcast, and the second one with a guest. And my guest today is Max Miller. Hello, Max.
Howdy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I know Max, this is funny. I guess I'll call it a coincidence, from my original sober community of Reframe, as was my last guest. You might think my current sober community, the Luckiest Club, I'd be more pulling members from there. But I'll tell you, Reframe had a lot of big personalities on there. So there were a lot of guys I just jotted down. I was like, I want these guys right off the bat. And Max, you were one of them. I didn't even know you when you did your speaker share. Reframe every Friday night at 9 Eastern. They do an hour-long speaker share. But I said, this guy's good. Just quickly, where you're based and what you do, because I think that's an interesting career you got going there.
Yeah. Well, first of all, just thanks for asking me to come on. It is so important to me to share my sobriety, because I know there's a lot of people that need to hear my story and hear your story and hear how there is hope and that your best days are not behind you. So thank you for having me on. And a little bit about myself. I'm here in Indianapolis, and I am a salesman for a company called Sylvia's Insurance Group. And I work with farmers. I sell insurance to insure farmers' physical plants, so corn, soybeans, wheat, things like that. And I've done that for almost about 10 years now.
And you actually farm yourself? Did I see video of you on
Mhm.
Facebook?
No,
Or
No, those are I go out and see clients and I
Okay.
get to like that's one of the things that I think is really fun is like I'll go out during harvest and ride in the combine and just catch up with some of the clients and so it's a lot of fun, to do that and yeah, and then I've been a fitness coach instructor for I don't know, maybe close to 15 years. I do that on the side. So, talking, teaching, educating, coaching, those things have kind of always been, I think that's just kind of my gift. And I've been able to be semi successful at that. And so I really enjoy it.
Cool, cool. Hey, and remember to look at the camera. I'm trying not to look at you, but I looks like you might not be. Tom and I talked about that on the first one. It's tough to do. And were you a CrossFitter originally? Did I at least saw you wearing their paraphernalia?
Oh, yeah. I was heavy into CrossFit,
Really?
big time into CrossFit for a long time. I was a CrossFit instructor for probably about 8 years. And but you get a little older and you get more responsibilities and you get a family, and so you gotta treat your body maybe a little more kindly. So I don't really do the CrossFit as much anymore, but I'm active. Being active is a huge part of my sobriety.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, big time. And I know we talked about. I'd asked you about the coffee at the outset, which I'll say it on every podcast. I'll be probably trying to throw it. I noticed, and you said you're done for the day, right? But did you find, I said coffee's big at AA meetings and all that, and I think we tend to almost become beverageaholics. For me, I just need something to feel like I'm cheating the system, even though I drink half calf. I even make ice that's more like just 20% caffeinated. But yeah, do you find you drink it for enjoyment or often just using it almost as a somewhat of a crutch as well?
I'd say it's both. I have a limit. I 1 to 2 cups typically, and I drink espresso. Now, my wife and I went to the UK last year, and I had some espresso over there, and so I drink Americanos. And I invested in like the machine and hand grind the beans and everything like that. So, um, I love coffee. I love the taste, and I need the caffeine, personally, but to a
Really?
limit. So, yeah,
Well, especially with a newborn, right? Congrats on that. I know
yes,
everyone says it, but that is one cute baby. But how old
thank
now?
you, thank you. Yeah, she's almost 7 months. So that has been
Nice.
a whirlwind of a learning experience, and it's been very joyous to watch her grow and develop, and it's very special.
Awesome, awesome. And how far into sobriety are you? And do you think the baby would be testing it if you weren't so far in?
Over 3 years, November of 24 was 3 years, and I made a decision before this baby arrived. This baby being here is a byproduct of my sobriety, like because my wife was like, she never said it, but I knew we've talked about it. She was like, I would have never had a baby with you, with the way you were drinking. It was like I kind of reached a point where I had to choose, do I want to have a family and grow and those kind of things, or do I want to drink? And so I started that 3 years ago, and then we got pregnant a little over a year ago, and so
Nice,
I don't
nice.
know if that
Yeah,
answers
yeah.
your question. I feel like I kind of danced around it maybe a little bit, but
Well, yeah, that's true. I guess it just be. Do you get tempted to drink it? Yeah. Does the baby challenge your sobriety? Does anything
oh,
challenge your
so
sobriety? Do you
so
ever think I want to
okay,
drink? Yeah.
so great question. So I know that today I don't feel like drinking, and I every day I wake up and I go, I don't necessarily ask myself this every day, but I think about in my most stressful moments, how do I want to alleviate that? And I think about, okay, I could have a drink, but then I think about, well, then I still have to come back to everything that's going on in my life. So if I escape for the 30 minutes that I get with the buzz, well, I still have to come back to my family and my work and everything. So really, and when I think about the stress, because having a child and trying to work a job and be patient with your wife and be loving and kind and those kind of things. I mean, you want to talk about being tested. And then I think about throwing a drink on top of that. I'm just like, do I want to explode my life up and blow it up into flames and ruin everything I've built? You know? And to me, when I decided to quit and turn, like it was like I felt death in my bones. I felt what it felt like to be dead, and so whenever I think about drinking, I'm like, do I want to die? Because to me, even having one drink is like dying.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, man. I'm at the point, and I'm almost at 11 months, but I once quit for 3.5 years, and I say I'm right back there. So, I feel like I have a lot more sobriety. I have a friend who's a very long time AA, and he's like, "What are you doing a podcast? They tell you not to speak." And he's got something like 7 years. He goes, "I barely even speak." And I said, "Dude, I feel like I have a lot more time than that, and I'm a lot more obsessed, I think, with sobriety than a lot of other people." But where I was going, off of what you said. So I'm at the point, almost 11 months, I cringe. I went to the Dylan movie recently where someone was doing a shot, and I cringed at it. There was something else I saw on TV the other day. I mean, I'm just so hooked on having a clear mind.
Hmm.
Just the thought of it. Yeah, just, which, the, the, most people, the thought is they just still think of it as, they just want it as an escape. But to me, I just know that is just not an escape. I just was on a sobriety call with a long time, 33-year sober guy. And he goes, "I know if I drink because my problems, I'm just going to wake up with the same problems, except with a hangover."
Yeah,
I mean, it's so basic, but that
yeah,
says it all. I mean,
yeah.
it
And
really
and
does.
I listened to Steve-O. He has a podcast, and I just
Yeah.
saw a clip on YouTube, and he said, I'm thankful. Like he said, he's thankful that he had alcoholism so bad that it was either he continues to drink and dies or he stops. And it wasn't like he had alcoholism to a point where he could kind of have drinks and kind of, still hold things together, but still have like the hangovers and stuff. Like it was like manageable. Like, because there's some people that are functioning, you call them functioning, and I was a high functioning alcoholic. I didn't lose my job, I didn't get the DUI, I didn't get those kinds of things, but I'm thankful that I had to choose to get, have the drink and drink like I was drinking or stop. And I didn't have the consequences yet. I didn't have those severe consequences, but those were coming. Those were gonna come, and I just woke up one day and decided and felt it in my bones that, hey, if you continue down this road, you're gonna die. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for that because I know exactly what I don't want, and I know, and sometimes you have to experience the life that you don't want to know what you do want. And so anytime I think about deviating from the path that I'm on, it's so simple for me to be like, I don't want that path. I don't want to go down that road. I want to live. I want to be, I want my daughter to see her dad be so happy and joyous and success and be there for her. I'm thinking about her. I'm 32, but I'm thinking about how I'm going to be as a granddad, because what I do now with my daughter will determine the kind of granddad that I am, you know? And if we build that foundation in our relationship, in our family, then when I'm a granddad, it'll be that, hey, that's what our family does. We get together, we communicate, we talk, we love, we share, we cry, all the things. We feel life on life's terms. And that's what's so beautiful about sobriety, is that when you choose not to numb life, you get to deal with life on life's terms. And it's beautiful and messy.
Yeah, Messi is right. Yeah, it's true. Even if we're not dying, which we all essentially slowly are, slow suicide, as some call it, we're definitely not living, and it's amazing. I use the analogy of recidivism, where you know George Lucas had said we're all living in cages with the door wide open, or another one is prison without walls, and we keep just every time we slip, we
Yeah.
put ourselves back in prison. But
Yeah.
it's because we can't imagine a life on the outside. And I think of the guy Brooks, the old guy in Shawshank Redemption, that tries to, in the library, tries to,
Mm.
commit a crime so they don't release him because it's so scary on the outside. One analogy I love is early sobriety. It's like living without skin. I'll probably
Yeah.
say it on every podcast.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but every day, as I like to say, we get that voice. That one of the ways I define our alcoholism. We got that voice inside us that never fully goes away, but every day that we don't drink, it gets weaker, we get stronger, and it shrivels up. And
Yeah.
it's a parasite. It thrives on alcohol, but if you don't feed it, it'll never reignite. But it will
Yeah.
always be there, and it's ready to pounce on weakness and vulnerability. And then if you do even take a sip, it comes back with a vengeance, man. And yeah, this really is a life or death, proposition, which isn't talked about enough.
Correct.
I just posted how it kills, I think it's 300 million people. Is it three? Should have in front of me. What the number that it kills worldwide? It's gonna be 300,000. To embarrass, I don't know. Is more than all illicit drugs combined, which is crazy. Yet, as the famous saying goes, it's the only drug that people question why you don't take it. I mean, it really is mind blowing. Did you go through a period of? Did you have any friends that where you had to apologize for not drinking? Like, I've gotten the point. Thanks to my coach, that I'm proud to say I'm a non-drinker. But did you experience that?
No, I never. I felt shame personally that I couldn't drink, and I thought that everyone was worried. Like I thought everyone was like when I show up to the party, because in early sobriety you don't understand that you got to change friends, you got to like you have to change what you're like where you're going, like because when you're an alcoholic or when you prioritize the drink, everything you do revolves around it, and so I had a lot of shame thinking that everyone was worried about what I was doing. And what I realized was that nobody cares about what I got going on because everybody's so consumed with themselves and what they got going on that it was my own insecurity, my own problem. And so I didn't no, I never apologized but it wasn't until I learned that why would I ever be ashamed of being addicted to a substance that is highly addictive? I'll never apologize for that. I'll never be sorry for that. And that's the problem with these big alcohol companies is that, they'll pay the millions of dollars in advertising and they'll show everybody on game day fist bumping and cheersing, but they don't show them waking up the next morning, not remembering the night before, hungover, thrown up in the toilet, you know, neglecting their family, their children, their responsibilities, their living well beneath their true potential. They don't show any of that. They show everyone having fun and like it's the best thing ever. And what people don't understand is when you consistently consume alcohol, it changes your relationship and your brain with dopamine. And so, I remember before I drank, before I was a drinker, the sunrise would be beautiful and it would elicit a dopamine response. And going for like a long walk or a run or a workout or talking with a friend would elicit this dopamine response. And when you become dependent on alcohol, the things that because our body is designed to go where the dopamine is easy, and so alcohol is easy and it elicits a astronomical amount of dopamine, so it rewires your brain.
Yep.
And so it took me about, I would say, a good year and a half before I could look at a sunrise and feel anything. And you talked about, living like without skin, sort of analogy of early sobriety. And my analogy of early sobriety is a newborn, is a newborn baby. Like, people want to come into sobriety and they want to take off running. They want to put everything in the past and they want to move, act like none of it happened and put all the crap behind them and run. And it's like, you're a baby. Babies don't run. They don't come out running. They need like 24/7 care for the first 8 weeks at least. And they need snuggles and they need swaddled and they need lots of food and they need lots of sleep and they need taken care of. And that's how that's how you are in sobriety is you can't take off running.
Yep. Yeah, one of the most helpful things to me was someone said, first 30 days, you don't have to do anything. If you have the luxury to just sit on the couch all day, basically eat whatever you want, drink whatever NA you want, and that really, really helped me. And
Yeah.
And I had a buddy took it too literally and said, "Well, that's not good to eat crap. It's not going to make you feel good." And all that. I said, "Yeah, I mean, don't have to get that literal with it, but it is just no pressure, which is big part of the reason I drank. And I even tell him any day is successful. It's kind of nice, the club I'm in called We Are the Luckiest, the Luckiest Club. I'm sorry, but it's just a sober community. But it's based on the book We Are the Luckiest. And I say one of the reasons is for the rest of our lives, every day is successful as long as we don't drink. I mean, it truly, truly is. And then you say, oh, that's such a low standard. It's really not, because then of course we're going to be successful beyond that, because we're all, strong people, stars in the making. Once we get sober, as they say, sobriety becomes our superpower, and we're the ones that can navigate life without it, so it is great, great stuff. And speaking of this being a life or death thing, I told you on text how just this morning I basically gave a eulogy with a very close friend of mine within my sober community who sadly passed from this awful disease. She just
Yeah.
could not beat it. They said her death was accidental, which we just take to mean that it was, accidental from drinking. And it's awful. And also when I was on Reframe, they were both cheerleaders, very similar people, cheering everybody on in the chat,
Yeah.
the whole thing. But in this case, we know this guy previously had been told he almost died from drinking. And they said if he did it again, he would die. And then sadly, within 2 weeks, he did it again. He even shared all that, but then still couldn't overcome it. And sadly, it happened. And my best guess, he just thought, like we all think, we're just going to have a couple. He just still needed to take that edge off, and then just got out of control, man. So this
Yeah.
is such a deadly,
Yeah.
deadly disorder, disease, what have you. I mean, on that note, do you call yourself an alcohol? How do you feel about the term
Oh, I
alcohol?
don't care. I really don't
Yeah.
care. I could care less about the term. You can. I'll tell. I mean, I say I'm an alcoholic because people know what that means. There's science now that, you got alcohol use disorder, alcohol, whatever. I don't care. It's one's too many for me and 100's not enough, kind of thing. Like, it's just whatever you want to call it. I got it, and I don't drink, so
Nice.
I don't
And
care.
you just know you process it differently, right? You brought up you never felt shame, and I'm glad, because I did have one of us ask me. He said, "How did you get over the shame of being an addict?" And I
Yeah,
said, "Dude, I never did. I never had to. I always knew. In my case, it was genetic. You look right at my immediate family.
yeah,
I completely take after the Irish side, and me
yeah,
and all my Irish cousins are either in the program or should be. And the
yeah,
only two that aren't are my brother and sister, who completely take after the Italian side.
yeah,
And that doesn't mean all Irish alcoholics and all Italian aren't, but in the case of my family, it's completely genetic, because my siblings can take it or leave it. My father can take it or leave it. The guy has a Bloody Mary at brunch, doesn't drink the rest of the day, which he might as well be, David Copperfield to those of
yeah,
us with a disorder, right? So you've always known, and right? We just process it differently, which
yeah,
is one of my goals, to educate people. They
yeah.
think we drink the same as they do, and we just have less willpower, the
Yeah,
normal
it's
people.
just the mental gymnastics that I would have to do to be able to consume an alcoholic beverage is just would take away from all, like, everything that needs my attention, and it would consume me. So I'm just like, I just can't drink. Like, that's just an easy solution for me. And I
Yep.
make it sound like it's so, like, black and white and easy, and it's like, I'm at 3+ years of sobriety. I've worked through this stuff. I've gone to counseling. Have sponsors. I've put the work in, and you put it in every day, and it's like compound interest. It builds and it grows, and it's like, so I remember sitting feeling hopeless, and being like, and listening to people that were had years of sobriety, and thinking, I'll never get there. How do I get there? And it's one day at a time. That's the beautiful thing about sobriety and life, is that we all have to live life one day at a time, regardless of what we have going on. And everybody has struggles, and they're different for some people. This was my struggle, and I can look back now at 3 and some change years sober, and I'm thankful because of the tools that I have now. And it's my sobriety. I've been able to take it into my business. I've been able to take it into my marriage, into my all my relationships, and and it's so powerful when you wake up and you go and you recognize that you are the captain of the ship, and that you are at the helm, and you are determining which direction your ship's going, and who's aboard. And the reality is that the most powerful thing you can do in your life is take 100% accountability and responsibility for everything that happens to you and goes on. At the end of the day, you have to say that the buck stops with me, and that, when I was an alcoholic, I that wasn't the problem. The problem wasn't the alcohol. It was a solution for me. The alcohol was a solution. I had it was that little boy inside that wanted to be safe and wanted to feel loved and wanted to be protected and wanted to be cared for. And it wasn't until I started nurturing that little boy inside and protecting him and loving him, and that everything changed in my life. And now I think about that little boy inside when, as a father, how, like, I want to put that little boy in a loving, caring, joyful space and place. And I'm in charge of that. No one else. Nobody else is in charge of that. Me.
Yeah, and funny you hit on my next topic, which I love talking about doing the work. I love to sing the song, doing the work, work, work. You got to do the work, work, work. Fifth Harmony, for anyone who doesn't know it. You didn't mention coaching, but I wanted to. So yeah, I'm such a big believer. Therapy, coaching. Well, I like to say this is a good one. Therapy's for the past, coaching's for the future, and then sharing on a sober community is for the present. Although it also helps with the past and with the future. So
I like that.
huge believer in all that stuff. Thank you. So therapy, you did. Do you still do it? Did you do it for a long time?
I did. I would say for the first 18 months, I mean, I was in counseling a couple times a month. I had lots. I was really lucky. Like, when I decided to get sober, I woke up, it was a Sunday, and I just went to the church and I said, I'm an alcoholic, I'm dying, and if you guys don't help me, I'm going to die. And I knew, I had felt, because I had a dream, I had felt death in my bones. Felt it, and it scared me to death, literally. And so I went to the church. They got me in with a counselor at the church, and I got into Celebrate Recovery. I got a sponsor. I worked a step study. I got a counselor that I paid for too. I did marriage counseling. So that's where, if I'm a believer. This is my beliefs. Like, it's a huge part of my sobriety. And there's a scripture that talks about God opposes the proud, gives grace to the humble. And I humbled myself because I was very proud. And I humbled myself, and I listened to people that were smarter than me, that had been there, and that were wanting to come alongside me. See, I tried to get sober on my own. You can't do it alone. That's why you need people. It doesn't work until you get around people, because then you go, oh, I'm not crazy. This guy struggles with the same thing as me. He's saying the same thing I'm saying. You have to get around sober people. You can't do it alone. So you need counselors, you need coaches, you need friends that you can trust and can support you. You need to build a network. You have to. It's impossible.
1,000%. I'll even say, it's funny you just said it's impossible, because I was going to say it can be done. And that's what some people will say to you. And I was one of them. When I quit for 3.5 years, I basically did it alone. My neighbor told me he'd done it for 8 years alone. And I said, damn, if he can do it, I can do it, and I found AA meetings fascinating, but I didn't want to drag myself, across the city to meetings all the time. I was a hermit, but what I discovered is that ultimately led me back to trying to drink normally, because I didn't have people in community to remind me, does not work. We will never, our brains are permanently changed. We can never go back, no matter how long. There's no cure for alcoholism. You can only just treat it. You can go into permanent remission, as I said about the voice, but that's our only life sentence. That voice is always with us. But as long as you don't drink, it cannot reinvigorate. It might try to pipe up every now and then, but you can squash it back down. But anyway, so I did do it alone. But what I learned, having slipped, which was 6 years ago, and I've said it basically was 5+ years of hell till recently, that I was forced to do the work the second time around. And that's where I've achieved emotional sobriety. And you kind of talked about it, living life on life's terms. And I also call it permission to enjoy life sober. It was a big difference from the first time. I did not feel that at all. So even those who do it alone, it's kind of like using antabuse or the other medications.
Mm-hmm.
That get rid of your cravings to drink, and you get sick if you drink. And I think that's great. But all that basically does is it freezes your midbrain and allows you to work on your prefrontal cortex to do hard things sober. But if you don't do the work in conjunction, they say you go off those meds, you could go right back, because you will not have developed, those natural coping skills. So even if for the few that can do it alone, they're much better off in the long run if they do it in community and do the work. So
No, you're 100% right. And like, I mean, I did hot yoga. I did meditation. I learned how to breathe. I tried everything, and I just you don't change until the pain of staying the same is worse than the pain of changing. And people say, well, they'll talk about the person they know that's struggling, and they're like, this has to be their rock bottom. Well, rock bottom's when you decide to stop digging, and it's different for other people because some people have higher pain tolerances than others. And I was fortunate that I didn't lose the house, I didn't lose the marriage, I didn't get the DUI, I didn't abuse my family, I didn't ruin friendships and relationships. I was a crappy friend. I was a low grade version of myself. So, but it's just so important, like you said, to do the work to develop. And I remember just looking up the stats of when I decided to get sober. I was like, well, what's the chances I relapse? And you look at the stats of relapse with alcohol, because it's such a popular drug. It's everywhere. And so the relapse rates are high. And I just thought, man, if I'm going to be sober, dang it, I want to be happy. And so I just decided that I don't want to just be sober. I don't want to just remove alcohol. Like, I don't want to have no alcohol and be miserable. I want to have joy in my life. And it's a lot of work, it's a lot of change, but it's worth it. It's worth it. And, I was 28 at the time, and I thought, man, my best days are behind me. I believed it. I believed that my best days were behind me. I'd never have fun again. And that was a lie. And that was a lie. It's not true. And my life has skyrocketed. And it just makes a huge difference. So I'm really glad that you are doing this, because this is what people need to hear. They need to know the truth.
absolutely, absolutely, and it's true. I mean, I like to say the promises of alcohol, all lies. Promises of sobriety, all true.
Well, that's one thing that I said was everything alcohol promised me, I found in sobriety.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is amazing. I said I basically just gave a eulogy on my sobriety call. First eulogy I ever tried. It was only the second one I've ever done. First one was my grandmother's 15 years or more ago,
Oh, wow.
but I knew I'd be nervous for it, and so I of course tried to cheat the system by doing shots out in the parking lot, and I got hauled off the altar after probably less than a minute. Didn't work at all. And I, but I also thought it would help me make through when I got emotional. And then this morning when I gave this one, I was in tears just prepping for it. Thought for sure I'd get emotional. I definitely got a little misty, but I plowed right through it, strong as can be, which I never thought I could have done. And I was always amazed at people in similar circumstances that gave eulogies for their parents. How did they make it through? But my guess is those people were either sober, or they certainly weren't, in the throes of addiction, because stronger sober. I say it at the end of every one of my YouTubes, man. Stronger sober.
Yes, absolutely.
Abs-
That's incredible.
Definitely. And you bring up since you brought up the recovery rates, yeah, it's the relapse rates. I happen to have them. It's 40 to 60% relapse in year one, 40 to
Yeah.
60%. And I'd love to wish they could study what percentage of the work they were doing. I've got about 10 major things that are part of the work. I already touched on some of them: coaching, therapy, sharing on calls, really any hard thing sober. But anyway, 40 to 60% year one, 21% in year two, and then years 3 to 5 goes down to under 10%. And then
Mm.
after 5 years, it's only 7%, which coincidentally they say is the same rate of a normal person can develop alcohol use disorder, is actually 7 to 9%. So,
Yeah.
it's not all genetic. People can develop this disorder. They can drink themselves into it, basically, through trauma, et cetera. Drink to such a point they completely, permanently change their brain and their reward system. But yeah, that's why doing the work is so important. And I want to clarify, when you said you were doing hot yoga, was that when you were trying to do it on your own, or that was part of?
That was part of my early sobriety was hot yoga. I mean, yeah, my wife and I, we did hot yoga. I was doing, reframe. The reframe app had some different prompts and stuff, and they had some breathing and meditation, and so I did that. And um, but one practice. Well, does that answers your question?
Yeah, I think it does. And don't forget what you're going to say, one practice, but I'll throw in. So it's funny. During my 3.5 years, I quit. I had a girlfriend that she and I went to hot yoga about 3, 4 times a week. I said the one reason I made it on my own, I was just popping in my head, I almost cheated the system by doing hard things sober. I didn't even realize at the time, but I went out, I got out of sales. I got a new job that was over my head doing Salesforce.com administration. Every day was a hard thing. My boss was a control freak. And then hot yoga, man, that's like running, a half marathon. It's 90 minutes. It's like running a
Yeah,
half marathon every session. You're like, what am I, just like a marathon, you're like, start off, what the hell am I doing? Then in the middle, it's like, all right, I'm settling in. But then it's still like, I'm never going to make this. And then you finish and you're like, this is great. Can't wait to go next time. So doing hard things sober is such a key
such a key
part.
part.
And that's replacing the dopamine, their natural dopamine hits, replacing the artificial ones that we got from alcohol. So yeah, what were you going to say?
Well,
Routine.
one of the practices that I did a lot, I did every day, and I don't do it as much. I should do it every day, but it's practicing gratitude, and there's a very specific reason why practicing gratitude is so important. Is not only does it get you to focus on the things that are going well and the things you're grateful for, and there are small things, I mean, it's like I'm grateful, I'm awake, and I'm sipping a cup of coffee, baby. I'm awake and I'm not hungover. Ooh, and it's Saturday and I got pancakes lined up too, baby. You know, but here's the more important thing about why gratitude is so important is that you have something in your brain. You can look this up. This is so cool. I learned this and I'm like, man, this is a hack. It's called the reticular activating system. Okay, and if you open up a giant Adobe document or a giant PDF. Okay, this is how it works in your brain. If you open a giant PDF that say it has 1,000 pages and you want to find the word the or to find the word the in that 1,000 page PDF, you hit Control F, and then it puts a little bar up there, and then you type in the word the and hit enter, and it will take you all through the document of where that word the is. And your reticular activating system is like that for your brain. So if I tell my brain today's a bad day, I'm going to look for all the reasons why that's true, and I'm going to find it. It's just like this. Like when you want to go buy say you want to buy an F-150 red F-150, and you're just fixated on it. You're like, I'm looking for that red F-150 with black rims. Now you're out driving and all you see is a red F-150 with black rims. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So that's where, like, what you look for is what you're gonna find. So if you're looking for reasons to be miserable and sad and depressed and all those things, you're gonna find those. But if you it's called, the reticular activating system and neuroplasticity. You can train your brain and make new neural pathways, because that's what all sobriety is about. It's about learning to do life a different way, and it takes time. It takes time, and you have to work. You got to make a plan. You got to work. It's like running a business. It's just like running a business. Your life is like a business.
I love that. I love that. And you started what you just said, talking about gratitude, which I think should be a great interest to a lot of people. I know I'm not alone in saying, oh man, I've always struggled with that part of it. A gratitude practice. What is that? And I've never been one of those. I'm thankful, on Thanksgiving, people, I'm thankful. And me, it was always kind of hokey. But then I realized through the Luckiest Club that, and I'm still not crazy about the name. When I heard it, just club, it's just not, it's a sober community. But anyway, Laura McCowan wrote this amazing book, We Are the Luckiest. And there's so many ways. And one of them, or no, I think about it all the time. I can enumerate, and someday I'm going to do a YouTube on it, all the ways that we are the luckiest. I already touched on a couple of them. One of the, I guess her summary of it is that sobriety leads to a life full of deeper connections, real growth, and new experiences. It's not always easy, but what makes us lucky is we get to live authentically. And it's so true, and she says, everyone needs to do the work. Everyone needs therapy. I say it's just personal coaching for your life. Except for most, it's just the cost of a copay, which I also call a cope pay. I said, Yeah,
Well, I
I
like
say
that.
sanity is just a cope pay away. So Sandy's should just say better health is a cope pay away. But as Laura says, everyone needs to do the work. We're just forced to do it because of our little drinking problem. People also say that one of my favorite quotes. A woman said, sharing on a call, she said, "Oh, my friend, say Linda, has all these problems. I wish she had a drinking problem so she could come on here to share about it, because it really is just group therapy. As Keola says, from Reframe, she says, well, I get to come to meetings. I don't have to come to meetings. I get to come. It's group therapy that I never would have
Yeah.
done,
Yeah.
and I know you get to the point where, hey, pretty much your life is so good you don't need it, and I know that's where you're at, and I'm starting to attend less, although also it's because I'm talking about it elsewhere. But anyway, we are the luckiest. So it all goes to the gratitude practice, which they say actually gives you a dopamine hit.
Yeah.
So how would you describe yours? Do you say it out loud? I mean, I think some people actually, sit down and say it, almost like they're saying prayer, which I'm sure you do. But um, I just say it kind of organically throughout the day when I talk sobriety. But how does it manifest for you? I guess.
Yeah, that's a great question. I used a gratitude journal for a long time.
Mm.
You just wake up in the morning, it has some prompts, and you start your day off with gratitude. But I actually, in early sobriety, and I would say for the first year, I woke up every day and got out of my bed, and the first thing I did was I got on my knees and put my face on the ground, and for 5 minutes, and I prayed, and I thanked God for the day. I thanked God that I woke up. I thank God that I got another chance to be the person that I know that I can be. I thank God that I get to do the work, that I get to create my life. So when my daughter's screaming and it's 2 in the morning, and do I feel this way every time? Like, oh, I'm so grateful I get to wake up at 2 in the morning and go take care of my daughter. No, I don't feel that way all the time. But when I think about it, I'm lucky. I'm lucky I get to get up and take care of my daughter and be present in her life, and take and sacrifice sleep, and do it with my wife and be a team, like take care of our daughter together. So those things that if I didn't have sobriety, maybe I would be, an angry person because I'm losing sleep and I'm inconvenienced. But to me, the you know where the trajectory that I was on was death, and so anything other than that is I'm lucky. And when you have that perspective, it changes everything. It changes everything.
Yeah, big time. Reminds me when I went to Europe, I went on a solo backpacking trip about 15 years ago. And when I got back, I loved it, but I always felt like I was on the other side of the world and I was homesick. So when I got back, I have a picture of me kissing the ground. I was
Mm,
just so grateful to be home. And I also like to use the analogy of It's a Wonderful Life, which everyone should have seen, but my sister hasn't. But that guy thinks he's got a miserable life and thinks his family's better without him. And then they, show him what it's almost like a Scrooge. They show him what life's like without him. And when he comes back to life, because he almost killed himself, he's so grateful, for his miserable job and his miserable house, drafty house with the loose doorknob. That's how I feel now. My life could use a lot of improvement, but I'm so happy. Um, I'm fine, and I experienced a lot of loneliness. Largely through drinking. I've never had a family, never met the one. I was married short term, my first long term girlfriend, but didn't have kids. But the difference now is I'm having fun. I'm enjoying life. A quote I'll probably give on every podcast, the last one. The guy who's 33 years sober I referenced earlier said, I'm always having fun. I may not show it on the inside, but I'm on the outside, but I'm having fun in the inside. I've just always got these great thoughts swirl in my head. I've always got dopamine flowing through because I'm doing hard things sober, even if it's a cold shower finish, which I do every day. I heard a guy just say that dopamine hit can last up to 3 hours. So yeah, it's always, running through my veins. And yeah, the gratitude, the last thing I'll say in that is Brene Brown, great author, very inspirational, says, that um, her research shows the people that were most equipped to tolerate joy, and that would including handling compliments, which a lot of us struggle with, but just equipped to handle joy, tolerate joy overall. They had a much higher tolerance to feel it more often and for longer periods of times if they had some kind of gratitude practice. So there's so much to be said um, about it. And if I didn't say it, yeah, I think I did. It does actually give you a dopamine hit as well. So it's so important. So, all right, you've alluded to it several times. Topic I've been waiting for is religion. I will say I was raised Catholic. I basically kind of once I had a choice. We used to go to church every week. Once we kind of had the choice, my brother and I, led probably by my brother, just kind of stopped going. And then there was the Catholic Church pre-scandals that definitely disenchanted me. And so, I really am not part, including with AA. I didn't really relate to the whole higher power thing, which I know people said it doesn't have to be God. It can, it could be anything, it can be even yourself. But, and those who credit God with their sobriety, I quasi joke and say, you're giving him too much credit, not yourself, enough credit. But I know it's a key part. I've even know people that said they spoke just like me, and now they say their prayers, and it was such a key part. I don't see me ever really incorporating that. Although I have another friend, he's like, dude, you more than anyone need some faith. He's like, I think you're taking the whole thing too literally with the God thing, but you need some faith in your life. So yeah, what can you say there, and how, it's particularly in light of someone like me? What would you say to them, and how's it played a role in your sobriety, getting sober, and all that?
Yeah, great question. I would say number one, the most impactful thing I did when I was younger was because I had my parents had shared Jesus with me, and we went to church, and they read your Bible and those kinds of things. But there's a lot of hypocrisy in the church. There's a lot of this person says they're religious, and then they're sleeping with the secretary, or they're abusive at home, and they look good in front of the pulpit. But so there's a lot of hypocrisy. And what I would say, because that turns a lot of people off, and people want authenticity. And what I would say is the best thing you can do is ask questions. To say, like, what one thing I did when I was young was I was like, okay, if there's a God here. Prove it. Prove it. Prove that you're real. Like, show me, because I want to follow you. I want to know you. I will be your ambassador. I will share your good news. I want to know you. And I opened my heart and I said, if you're real, fill me. Be a part of my life. Show me that you're real. And it wasn't like, prove to me, like, do some miracle, like light something on fire kind of thing. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. It was like, I want to be serious about this if I'm going to commit to. And a lot of people use the term religion. I don't like religion, because religion is like rules and regulations and these types of things. And it's like, it's a relationship, because I'm broken. I'm fallen. We're all broken and fallen. We all have crap. We're all disgusting. And the invitation is that amidst my nastiness, and I'll give you an analogy that will prove this to you, that amidst my nastiness and who I am as a person and the things that I've done that are wrong, I'm loved. I'm forgiven. That there's grace and there's room for me in his kingdom, and there's love. And it's not until you experience the love and the grace and the forgiveness that you can comprehend or understand who God is. And so I'll give you an example. When I hold my daughter and I look at her in the eyes, she looks at me and knows that I love her. And I know that there's nothing that she can do to ever change how I feel about her as my daughter. I will always love her. I will always care for her and protect her and love her no matter what. And God, we are his children, and he loves us. And even in our dirtiness, he loves us. And that's what's so special, is like, I don't care about all the details, and you can get into scripture and biblical and this and that. It's like the creator of heaven and earth loves me, and I want to know him. And so it's a two-way street. It's he loves me and wants to know me, and I want to love him and know him and be loved by him. And So I don't know if that answers you, but I don't have all the answers. This is what I know.
Yeah, you sounded like you were gonna offer some proof, which yeah is one of the things. And I often don't like to grill religious people because I'm afraid I'm gonna talk them out of it, as my friends essentially did to me at a wake when I was young. They almost cornered
Yeah.
me. They cornered me, and they were like, and I said something like, "Well, at least he's in heaven now." And they said, "Really? You believe all that stuff?" And uh, some do call it. It's almost like you know Santa Claus story, except it's perpetuated by millions. And as Nietzsche said, it's the opium of the people. And um, you got to believe something. So I think there's a lot of goodness there. But you did sound like you were gonna then quote some kind of miracle or proof there. But I
Oh,
mean,
well, I mean, my personal testimony is enough proof for me, but I guess I was using the analogy of the child, like what can your child give you and how much do you love them? They can give you nothing. They can give you nothing. And it's an image of how our heavenly Father loves us, that we can give him nothing, but he cares for us. Like my I care for my daughter. We you know think about it, like you're paying money, like you're taking care of your child, and he takes care of us. But my personal testimony, when I was in high school, I said to the Lord, I was like, I want to know if you're real. I want to know if you're out there, like. And I would go to my basement in my house as my senior year, and I had a prayer journal, and so I would pray and write down just different things that was praying for. And then I got this thought. I was like, okay, this was just I just did this. I'm not saying that you do this or that this is the way that it works, but this is what I did. So I prayed for four different things. I prayed for I needed $100. I needed $100, and then I wanted to learn guitar, so I wanted a guitar, and then I wanted to learn more about the Bible, so I wanted a big giant like study Bible. And then the last thing was I wanted a clip to clip my lunch pail in my book bag. I don't know why. These are just so I started praying for these things. I wrote them down. I told nobody. I told nobody. This was my prayer journal. It was hidden. I told nobody about this. And within 1 week, my mom comes home. She says, "Hey, I was at Goodwill. I saw this giant study Bible and thought of you. Here you go." Okay. I'm at my buddy's house, and we're playing like Call of Duty, and his mom walks in and she says, "Hey, there's a guitar in the foyer. It needs one string, and if you want it, it's yours, Max." And I'm like, "Okay, this is crazy." And then the following week, I'm at a regional track meet with one of my buddies, and he tears his hamstring. And he texts me, and he comes up to me and says, "Hey, I mow this cemetery on Sundays. It's $100. Can you mow it for me?" $100 exactly. Like, not 100 and some change. It's 100 exactly. Okay, that's the third thing. Now, the last thing, I am walking into school. I'm walking down the hallway, and I'm walking out of the science room, and I just felt this voice. Okay, I'll call it a voice, whatever, prompt me and say, "Look in the trash can." I look in this empty trash can, and at the bottom of it is a clip, and I clip my lunch pail in my book bag. And ever since then, I've never doubted whether God's real, and He has taken care of me my whole life. And so that's my story. That's my proof, I guess. But I sought him and I said, "I want to know if you're real. I want you to show me." And that's what I said was, if you want to know if he's real, seek him, find him. He'll show you. He'll show himself to you. He will. He. That's he loves us and he wants that relationship with us. But he doesn't, force it or make you be a certain way to have that.
and what do you actually picture? And this is where it might get too literal, but I mean, picture this God that's omnipotent, answering everybody's prayers, including athletes. He picks certain athletes to win and lose, and Oscar winners and Grammys and all that, and include,
Yeah.
the old. There's even a flow chart meme that says, your prayers answered. God, praise God, not answered. God works in mysterious ways. I mean, you know, people that die in the fires, and then but the survivors say God saved them. So why did God pick them to perish? He needed to call them. I guess yeah, he wanted them to come home to him.
Yeah.
How do
Like, is
you?
it a question like, why do bad things happen to good people, and
Yeah,
why do
I
bad
guess I
things
guess so.
happen? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great question. I wish I knew the answer. I don't
Yep.
know the answer to that. I do know that God gives us free will, and that there is evil in this world, and that um, we have an opportunity to come underneath His love and care, and that doesn't, just like with alcoholism, like just because you get sober doesn't mean you don't have problems. You may have more problems getting sober than before because now you're aware, you're awake, and religion is not it's not a solution to not give like not have problems in this world. It's that God didn't say, Jesus doesn't promise us not to have problems. He says that He'll be with you amidst those problems, that He will be a part of your life with those problems. And so I look at my life, and just because I'm not in the church and I'm not a minister and those kind of things doesn't mean I don't have a ministry. My life is my ministry, and I have an opportunity to partner with God in life in anything that I do. That He wants to be a part of that. It's not that God only works or functions inside the church. It's quite the opposite. God is He's out of the church. He's in the church. He's with us. He's everywhere. I understand your hesitancy, or that there would be hesitancy to say, well, why would I trust a God that's allows these bad things to happen? When what I would say is, have you tried to seek Him? Have you tried to find Him? Have you surrendered? Have you asked Him to come and make His home in you and be with you? Because it's a two-way street. It's God's ready and He's there, and but you have to be ready. Just like in sobriety, you have to be ready to surrender and ready to come underneath and say, I can't do it alone. I need you.
Yeah, that totally made me think of surrendering, as they say in AA, which is a firm believer. People, some don't like that because that we're in powerless. But the reality is, when you're in the throes of addiction, you are powerless. You have no willpower.
Mm.
Once your midbrain kicks in, that survival mechanism, it shuts down your prefrontal cortex, and you are left powerless until you break the cycle. And then willpower slowly can play a role as you do the work, and you want sobriety more, and you truly want sobriety. Which
Yes.
but so how did religion play, I guess, a role in you said you got community, you didn't do it alone, but you didn't do it through, even though you're a reframed member, you never were really super active on calls and sharing and all that, right? It was more so through your church, I do believe. and,
Yeah,
and
I
one
mean, sorry, go ahead.
well, I don't want to forget to say, and apologize, segue also related. I'm curious if for the church part, you're fearful of outing yourself, because nothing drives me more crazy, and it's awful. I'm a little closed minded on this. People saying they want to go to a meeting because they might be spotted, but it's like by someone else in an AA meeting. That doesn't make any sense to me, unless they're undercover and they're not actually there. They're only there to out people, but that's
Yeah.
not the,
Well,
so. Yeah, I didn't
what
want
I
to
would
forget to say that, because I think it's very important. Take pride that you do not drink. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and there's a difference between taking pride and thinking you're better than somebody because you don't drink. Like I have to be careful because like this is my journey and no one else's. And I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I don't, because I know the people that know me and love me, they know me. They know what's going on, and when you're a light, like it doesn't matter where you are, you're going to shine, whether you're in an AA meeting or you're at a crop insurance meeting or you're out at the grocery store. When you're a light, you shine and people see it. It doesn't matter. So there's a lot of shame that goes back to shame. Well, I don't want this person to see me, this and that. It's like you haven't owned where you're at yet. If you're hiding, own it. The best thing, it's like I talk to clients and I say, hey, like new clients, I say, hey, guess what we're going to do right now? Like in the first meeting, we're going to decide if we're doing business. We're just going to make a decision, because we're not going to dance around the fact that I'm trying to grow my business and you need me for your service. So we're going to just make the decision right now. It's simple. It's easy for me to see that, and I have to remember that it's so easy for other people, and that everyone has their own journey. It's personal, and there's no one size fits all. So the church, I remember walking into church because I went to a program called Celebrate Recovery through my church, and it's a basically take AA and put it in a church, kind of. There's 12 steps and 8 principles and So it's very similar, but it's just based around the Bible more so, and God. Um, but so that's where I did a lot of my recovery was through Celebrate Recovery, and getting a sponsor, and I did the 12 steps, the recovery program that they have, and that was my journey. And I never went to an AA meeting, not that I have anything against it, but you just have to realize that, man, if it's like, if you want to change, you can change right now, today. You just have to decide. And that's the biggest battle, is deciding, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want in your life? Do you want to be happy? Do you want to be sober? Do you want to be in it? And I know that there's so many other things that go into that decision, but you can have what you want, but you have to be the one to decide that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking of, I guess one final question on this is just, I guess the power of prayer in that, for people that don't have faith necessarily to start, but are dying to recover, so I guess that is, yeah, the power of prayer, I guess, can being a role in this, or just the whole higher power. Yes, I guess, I don't know. Might edit this, but how can, I guess, the power of prayer play a role in recovery, other than it being a practice, just like a gratitude practice? They even say consistent routine also gives you a dopamine hit and strengthens your prefrontal cortex. Because, oh, now I think, oh, I'm answering my own question. They say that the addict craves spiritual development and personal growth. So, you know,
A
I know I've
thousand
done the
percent.
personal growth, but I probably do have some work to do on the spiritual development.
Yeah. But recognizing, in regards to spiritual development, that really the key to developing spiritually is surrendering and saying, it's not about me. This journey isn't about me. It's about my it's about, for me, it's about Jesus. It's about him. It's not
Mm,
about me. And Jesus came to serve and love. And as a father and a husband, I'm called to serve and love my family. And my friends and colleagues, and so you asked the question about prayer. Prayer is absolutely one of those parts of surrendering and asking God for help, and believing that he hears you, believing that he will answer. And it's not on our timeline. It's not about what we want. Our faith isn't about us. It's about him. And we live in a society that preaches, get ahead, all about you, make money, do this, do that. It's just like in the winter. In the winter, the trees grow in the winter, when nobody's watching, when they're barren, when they've been stripped. Go out and look at the limbs on the trees. They've grown. And it's that is what sobriety is. It's a stripping, it's a barrenness, it's a removal of self, and an opportunity to get your head out of the sand. One of my first apologies was to my wife. I'm so sorry. I'll never do this again. I'm so sorry. I made promises to her, and I fell short when I stood at that altar. Okay? And so this is a much bigger than me, and that's what's hard with addiction, is that it's not just the addict that suffers, it's the families, it's the friends, it's the
mm,
businesses. It
yeah.
affects so many people. But the first thing you have to do, if you're gonna help those other people, is get right with yourself, because those other people that that have healing to do in their own lives. And that's what I realized, was when I started taking responsibility for myself. My wife was kind of able to, I don't know how to say it, like, maybe she didn't have to worry about me as much, so she was able to kind of take care of her. I don't know,
Yeah,
that's
that's no, that's good. Yeah. My mother said to me, I kind of resented at the time, but said, "Your father and I have our own problems, so you need to figure this out yourself." Um, that was a little tough because it kind of kept me from sharing more with her. But it's true. Everyone's got a lot of work to do, and as they say, we say, Reframe has 9 things that Laura McGowan opened a book with, and one of them is only you can do it. I mean, ultimately, you need a lot of help, but you've got to make that decision and do it. Um, so, all right, one more though. So, how? I'm going to quote him because you sound very open-minded. You said, ask the questions. George Carlin famously calls God the invisible man in the sky. So how does somebody that just thinks of it as the invisible man in the sky, how do you come to terms with that's the guy you're talking to, you're praying to, etc.
Mm.
It'd sure be nice if he came again, kind of as promised. So,
Oh
I,
man. Yeah. Um, it's like the tangibility of your faith. Like I want to touch it, see it, feel it. Okay? If you touch it, felt it, saw it, you wouldn't need faith. You wouldn't need faith. If it was right in front of you and it was predictable. See, we like control. We like to know. We like to be able to predict what's going to happen, what's not going to happen, what's fair, what's right, what's wrong. We like all that stuff. And the thing about God is that he doesn't operate like we think. He's omnipresent. He's like his ability we can't fathom and rationalize who God is. But I know him because I've asked him into my heart, and I've felt his love and his forgiveness and his grace, and I've seen him take care of me in my life. I have asked. I mean, I remember being in my basement as a senior in high school and praying, God, I want to have a life where I'm happy. I want to have a job where I love. I want to have a family to love and nurture and care for. And I was an alcoholic for 5 years as a Christian, in darkness, dying slowly. But he pulled me out of it. He did. And I have a wonderful family. I have a roof over my head. I am provided for. And so the invisible man in the sky, it's like if you are looking to disprove why there's not a God, you'll find that. You'll find it. If you're looking for God and you want him and you want him to come build his home in your house, in your soul, he'll show himself to you. I know him. I know he will. That's what he did to me. And so it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what you think because he knows. And one day, it's like I told somebody was like, well, I don't believe in God. And I'm like, well, like, okay, but what if you're wrong? What if God was real and you had this invitation for eternal life and all you had to do was believe and say his name and trust in him? Like what if he is real? Like what's the downside? Tell me where this goes wrong. What's the downside to saying, okay, God, maybe you are real. Like show yourself to me. Like where can that go wrong? He doesn't show himself. Okay, well, now you've proved your point that he isn't real. Like I just don't understand, and a lot of those people have been hurt. They've been broken. They've been a part of hypocritical congregations and churches and people, and God is not people. God is God. And
yeah, I
so
always said, I hope when I stop going to church, you'd understand that I'm working 5 days a week. So I already got 5 days. I got to get up and shower and shave. So need a couple days off. I hope he'll understand.
yeah. Well,
But I hear you.
God doesn't want your church attendance. He doesn't care about that. He wants your freaking heart. He wants you. He doesn't want your church. He doesn't want your Bible reading, your nice fancy dress suit. He wants your heart. He wants to make his home in your soul so you can come into his kingdom. That's what he wants. But
yeah.
we don't, our society doesn't preach that. It preaches performance and meeting metrics and executing and producing. It's not about that. In these are my opinions, obviously.
Yeah. No, but good answer. I'm just looking at the definition of faith: complete trust or confidence in someone or something. And then the second one is strong belief in God. But one definition I'd heard that I love is just belief that tomorrow is going to be a better day. So bringing it back to sobriety, I think that's so important because you never know what tomorrow might bring. And better days are coming. Oh, one of my favorite sobriety songs, Dylan, isn't McDermott, but it's so good. I might even have to throw out a few lyrics from it. But yeah, every day gets better in sobriety. Definitely tough days come along, but every day gets better. And on that abrupt note, we'll end part 1. I do want to clarify there at the end, I referenced the song Better Days by Dermot Kennedy, not by Dylan McDermott, as I said. Didn't even get the first name right. And I actually was confusing him with Dermot Mulrooney. So I've now committed that to memory. I'll blame my ADD. But that song, Better Days, And by Dermot Kennedy, if you don't know it, it's a great one, especially for recovery. He says, I know you've been hurting, waiting on a train that just won't come. The rain, it ain't permanent, and soon we'll be dancing in the sun. We'll be dancing in the sun. It's so good. Check it out. I actually have a video on it on YouTube talking about the song and Better Days Ahead, number 18 on the Sober Cappy YouTube page. So, as always, thanks for watching, listening, and please like, share, subscribe, and eventually think about doing a review. Would be greatly appreciated. Peace out.